Let me welcome Burton Sankerali. Thank you so much for taking the time this morning. It's good to see you again.
Thank you.
Our listeners this morning may have heard the last time you were here and we spoke, and or another member of the society, Dr. Peter Pedro, when he was here. But those who were not, give me a quick look into what is the Bolivarian Solidarity Movement of Trinidad and Tobago all about.
Okay, the Bolivarian Solidarity Movement, of which I am a past chairman. I'm not really representing them this morning.
Okay.
But I am, I'm still a member. They was started some years ago, and the concern was to stand in solidarity with the revolutionary process in Venezuela and Latin America, and to propagate those ideas of a different kind of society, that a different kind of world is possible throughout our own country and the Caribbean.
All right, so now that we understand the backdrop of that, I want to, of course, focus on Venezuela. That's clearly where our focus is. It seems that the government is unable, for some reason or the other, according to the reports we get, to dissuade the majority of its citizens, it seems. The government is unable to dissuade a majority of the citizens from protesting. The first question I should ask then is this. Are the reports we are getting accurate? Are they close to accurate? The out-of-control situation as reported. Is it what we are reading, or is it different?
Well, as you say, it seems, right? Really, the base of the opposition to the Bolivarian government in Venezuela, it's a government. It's interesting the places you want to call that have regimes, right? Well, Bush has a regime, but the government, the base of the opposition has consistently been a minority base. However, the Western media and the dominant media and the oligarchy focuses on them and on their cause, and gives the impression that it's the majority and the whole country is falling apart, even though these protests are limited to very small areas of the country where that base is really most active and present. So it's highly one-sided and selective.
Answer me this question. Many have claimed, including the president of Venezuela, President Maduro, that these insurgents, these opposition forces, are in fact receiving substantial investment from foreign governments and foreign interests to bring down his government. Is that an assertion made out of desperation, one out of good PR, or is there anything to support that fact to the best of your knowledge?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, I would say the opposition would be running true to form, because there is on record a sustained campaign of the opposition in Venezuela, backed by the United States, backed by their corporate media that controls basically the global media, against the Venezuelan Bolivarian government. So it will be entirely consistent that what we are looking at is a de facto, well, one associate of mine calls it a de facto invasion, similar on a smaller scale, but similar to what the U.S. did in Syria, for instance.
It's not
of trying to destabilize, and even the Ukraine, you can say to an extent.
It's
a playbook. It's a playbook of trying to execute regime change.
If you cannot bring the regime change, you are saying if you cannot bring the regime change through guns, then you do it through propaganda.
Through propaganda, but also it's through guns too, because you're actually supporting and funding armed groups. This is happening in Venezuela. I mean, the government is not, the Bolivarian government is not against protest. Protest is enshrined in their constitution, which we will get to, right? But there are these armed gangs doing violence against the country that is being backed by the U.S. regime, that is being backed by the empire, and they're doing violence, and the media is not covering that. They're saying people are dying, but very strangely, they are not saying who's doing the killing. Now, if the Bolivarian government was doing the killing, you can rest assured the media will have it plastered all over their story. You can be sure of that. But they're just saying there are these protests and people are dying, but they're not saying who's doing the killing. A lot of the killing and violence is being done by these gangs de facto funded by the empire, by these gangs, and they have a racial dimension too. I mean, some African Venezuelans have been attacked. One was burned to death because they looked at him and said, "Oh, you're a Chavista. Have some fire," and he was burned to death. So there's this whole racist dimension to it as well.
The Constituent Assembly is what my guest referred to a moment ago, and we will get to that in a moment. My guest is Burton Sankerali. He's a member of the Bolivarian Solidarity Movement. He's the former chairman. The Maduro government, as we said before, say the scale of the protest is fueled by outside forces. They point the United States. Others, however, contend that this is fueled by genuine discontent and a lack of confidence in the government. How do you respond to that?
Well, it's a matter of whose side you're on, I suppose, in the whole Venezuelan scenario. Now, the situation in Venezuela has been exacerbated by the drop in oil prices, which we suspect is not entirely accidental. I mean, the U.S. has a great say, especially at this time, in terms of the price of oil, in terms of the reserves the U.S. has, of oil that the U.S. has, in terms of their relation to Saudi Arabia and these things. And the price of oil dropped at a time when not only Venezuela, but also Russia was a problem for the U.S. And Russia, as you know, has vast oil reserves.
Well, oil manipulation is something we've seen before. However, as you open that door, the economic challenges faced by the Maduro government is not dissimilar to that faced not only by Saudi Arabia, not only by many oil-producing countries. Why is this problem that oil-producing countries are facing not understood by the protesting citizenry in Venezuela?
Well, you see, there are other oil-producing countries, but they may have their business fixed, like Saudi Arabia, who has this cushy relationship with the U.S. Venezuela was always in a vulnerable position. First of all, they have been trying to redistribute the oil wealth to the people, right? To the people. So the oil wealth is busy. It's spoken for. It's to the people. Secondly, there have been, because of the constant destabilization and the problems the revolution has been facing, they have been more vulnerable to different forms of destabilization and to social disruption, like with strikes, like with crime, like with trying to sort out their bureaucracy. They have not been given the space to sort out these things. I mean, no process is perfect. For sure, the government in Venezuela has made mistakes, but they have not been given the space to sort these things out because of this constant pressure and destabilization.
Not to forget that there was a coup at one time, an attempted coup.
An attempted coup, where they actually had Chavez out of power for 2 days. But a couple million people went into Caracas and requested that he return. So they returned him, you know. So there's been this constant destabilization. So this drop in oil prices that has been, at least in part, engineered by the U.S. has been very disruptive to what's happening in Venezuela.
12 minutes after 10 o'clock, let me quantum leap a little bit. My guest, by the way, is Burton Sankerali. Dulce Rodriguez, who's Venezuela's foreign minister, accused Washington of leading the new push by the Organization of American States to isolate her country, Venezuela. She said they've been at loggerheads with the United States since the left-wing government of the late President Hugo Chavez took power. Why is the populace not seeing the protesting populace not seeing that these are moves manipulated by outside forces?
Well, the population, the protesters, I should say, that section of the population that's protesting has its own agenda, and to a large extent, at the level of the oligarchy, they are behind it. Now, a lot of the middle class has been supporting the oligarchy, so that gives them a kind of a base of about 20-30% of the population, right? For different reasons. The middle classes, revolutionaries, throughout the world tend to be treacherous, but the Venezuelan middle class has always had this particularly elitist kind of orientation. And we meet their members in the Port of Spain area.
The class struggle is not, the class struggle is not limited to there. We are aware of that. Let us go to the 15-nation-strong regional body called CARICOM. They have stayed the hand of the interventionist countries in the Organization of the American States. So many believe Venezuela needed friendly, honest, and non-interventionist support from CARICOM neighbors to help Venezuela find a solution to its own problems. So said Foreign Minister Samuel Moncada. How important has CARICOM position been to Venezuela, and how much more can CARICOM nations do to assist the situation there?
Well, to understand CARICOM, you have to look at the OAS. right? And the OAS has been going back to the right wing, in part because the Bolivarian revolution, that's a continental-wide revolution in South America, is democratic. And once you have a democratic process, there will be times when the opposition would win, and that's fine. That's the nature of a fair democratic system. So that's been happening. Also, the U.S. has been destabilizing. They did away with a progressive government in Honduras by non-democratic means. The president of Brazil, who was left of center, was removed again by non-democratic means. So they have been undermining Latin America. So the OAS is right now in the American camp and in the American pocket. The Caribbean, to its credit, has stood up against that. Has stood up against that drift by the OAS. They're out on a limb. I mean, I am reliably informed that the United States government has even attempted to interfere in the kind of stand the Caribbean is taking, but we wouldn't go there. But they have been standing their ground to their credit, and we want to see that continue.
Lula says, I'm going, that's Brazil. Lula says, you're not going to keep me out, right? Whether you jail me or not, I will continue. So that part of it, that's in Brazil. Let's stay with Trinidad and Tobago's joint trade union movement. They said it supports the National Constituent Assembly, which is where we are right now, and denounces any further attempt to disband it, adding that the National Constituent Assembly, with its unique representation, allow peasants and fishermen to find a forum where their interests can be served. The Constituent Assembly explained to our listeners what that is about.
Okay, first of all, I'm going to show you something, and I want you to tell the viewers what it is you are reading.
The Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
Right. This is the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic, which right now the opposition even is supporting and wrapping itself around. The right for recall, which the opposition is agitating for, even though they missed the deadline. The right for recall was put by Chavez because Chavez was committed to democracy, and they're wrapping themselves in this constitution. This is one of the great constitutions of our hemisphere, right up there with the Haitian constitution of the Haitian Revolution, perhaps the first constitution in the history of the planet to ban slavery. This is up here with this, right? This constitution protects the rights of women, of families, of domestic labor done by women, First Peoples, cultural rights, education rights. It is, as I said, one of the great constitutions. And when you turn to Article 348 of this constitution, because they want to suggest that Maduro is acting unconstitutionally, that he wants to rewrite, basically do away with the constitution. It's his constitution. Listen to what it says here. Chapter 3, National Constituent Assembly, Article 345. The people of Venezuela is the depository of the originary constituent power. This power may be exercised by calling a National Constituent Assembly for the purposes of transforming the state, creating a new legal order, and drafting a new constitution. Article 348. The initiative for calling a National Constituent Assembly may be taken by the President of the Republic sitting with the Ministers' Council. So this is entirely within the Constitution. Chavez saw this Constitution. I'll pick that up. Chavez saw this Constitution as part of a process by which, over time, the people and the communities, especially the marginalized, will have a say in how they govern the country. So he put this in the Venezuelan Constitution as a means of continuing transformation. So the Constitution itself can constantly be
a living document.
Yes.
And not
now, of course, Maduro has been under a state of de facto siege and violence by the opposition for a number of years. The opposition, because it's a democratic process, won a parliamentary election in Venezuela. They won it, so they cannot complain that the electoral process or the electoral council in Venezuela is unfair, because that process and that electoral commission gave them an election, you can say, which they won. So they cannot complain about how about its fairness. It is obviously fair, right? The opposition goes on to immediately almost make a mess of that and create a stalemate by doing something that the court ruled as illegal, right? There's all this happening. So there's all this attack on the society happening. So Maduro, according to the constitution, has called for a national constituent assembly. And he has further said that even having had this national constituent assembly, it is going to be put up to a referendum. So it's an entirely democratic process that Maduro is following. And if the opposition had confidence in itself, because we know they have confidence in the Electoral Commission that gave them the parliamentary elections.
Yes.
So if the opposition had confidence in itself and its base, it would be happy to get into this. In fact, they could have used their own control of the parliament to call that assembly if they wanted and do the constitution as that assembly would see fit. But they obviously do not know. They obviously know they do not have the support of the base.
So it is
at the end of the day
a cherry picking of the constitution. That's why
Yes.
I believe President Maduro himself is in awe to understand why the U.S. president last Monday threatened to impose economic sanctions on Venezuelans because of this. He said if they went ahead and invoked the National Constituent Assembly, that the United States will take economic actions against the Venezuelan president and his representatives.
Well, yes. I mean, apart from the fact that he's a buffoon, the president of the U.S., he's being briefed by the State Department, and sometimes if you listen carefully, you can hear when the State Department is talking, and yes, which is unheard of. It's madness. A country is following its constitution, which I just read for the good people listening here, and you are looking to interfere in this. I mean, and they want to complain about Russia interfering in their elections. I mean, yeah, karma is a female dog.
Burton Sankerali, who is a member of the Bolivarian Solidarity Movement, is my guest this morning. Looking down the road, the situation seems to be getting more and more worrisome. In conclusion of our little chat here this morning, what do you see as far as relief for the people of Venezuela as best you can see, and or as articulated by the president, on the best case scenario that can take Venezuela out of this area it's in? Is it only a case of suppressing and or educating the protesting masses to come to the understanding that there is a new reality, or is there a not panacea, but something close to a gift coming via increase in oil prices? What do you think will stay the situation in Venezuela as is now?
Well, the best case scenario will be that the impending collapse of the U.S. will happen sooner rather than later. Now, this might sound far-fetched, but some years ago, I knew the late Lloyd Best very well. And some years ago, when we were having a session at Tapia House, Lloyd Best said, this was in the 90s, if memory serves. He says, well, in the 21st century, America will split into two, and everyone will think it's a show. And I'm looking at Donald Trump on the news, and everyone thinks it's a show. So that would be a best case scenario. But in the real world, as the unraveling of empires do take time, in the real world, the Venezuelan people are very resilient. They are used to this. They have been in the trenches for a long time. They fought a war for their independence, and so they will stay the course. The people of Venezuela, they will stay the course. Next year is a critical year because next year is when the elections are constitutionally due, right? The media again wants to convey this impression that Maduro does not want to have elections. The elections are constitutionally due next year, so next year would be an important year. But the Bolivarian people are strong and they are resilient.
All right. Burton Sankerali, I thank you so much for coming here this morning. We will look at what will happen for the next year. As I said, it's always important that we take another look, a look at the other side, because representation, manipulation of news is nothing new. And even if it is not manipulated, there are other views on the other side. And I thank you for bringing that view out from yourself and the Bolivarian Solidarity Movement. You yourself involved in a whole lot of things, including being a writer yourself.
Yes.
A political analyst and so on. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this morning.
Thank you.
And have yourself a wonderful Sunday, sir.